Commander Elena Reyes stood at the observation deck of the research vessel Copernicus, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling anomaly that filled the view screen. The region of space before her seemed to absorb light itself, creating patterns that defied conventional physics. 6 ships had vanished in this sector over the past month alone, adding to the growing list of vessels that had disappeared without trace in what the galactic community had dubbed the Void. The signal that had brought them here pulsed steadily on her datapad, a rhythmic pattern that had first caught the attention of Earth's deep space monitoring network 3 weeks ago. While other species avoided this notorious sector of space, humanity's curiosity had prevailed over caution. Commander, the Galactic Assembly representatives have arrived. Lieutenant Sarah Chen's voice came through the intercom, tension evident in her tone. They're not happy we're here. Ray straightened her uniform. Of course they're not. When are they ever happy with anything we do? The assembly chamber had been hastily set up in the Copernicus's conference room. 7 alien representatives sat around the circular table, their expressions ranging from concern to outright hostility. Ambassador Zextra of the Meridian Collective, a tall, crystalline being, spoke first. Commander Rise, your presence in the Void sector violates multiple assembly safety protocols. This region has been designated as a quarantine zone for good reason. Rise activated the holographic display at the center of the table, showing the signal pattern they detected. With respect, Ambassador, we've discovered something that demands investigation. This signal bears hallmarks of artificial origin, predating any known civilization in the galaxy. All the more reason to stay away, hissed Representative Call, their feathered crest rising in agitation. The Void has claimed thousands of lives. Whatever lurks here should remain undisturbed. What if it's not lying dormant? Rise challenged, bringing up the statistics. Ship disappearances in this sector have increased by 300% in the past year alone. Whatever's here, it's becoming more active. We can't simply ignore it and hope it goes away. The room erupted in overlapping arguments, but Reyes noticed Ambassadors Extra studying the data with their crystalline eyes. The Meridian were known for their analytical approach, and she hoped they might see the logic in her position. The Assembly's position is clear, announced Ketel, rising to their full height. This sector remains under quarantine. Any human vessels found here will be considered in violation of galactic law. Reyes felt her jaw tighten, but maintained her diplomatic composure. And when more ships disappear, when whatever's causing this spreads beyond the Void, what then? Then we will address it according to assembly protocols, Ketel replied dismissively. After the representatives had departed, Lieutenant Chen found Reyes back at the observation deck. They're really going to do nothing. Just let ships keep vanishing. They're going to try, Reyes replied, her mind already racing with possibilities. But we're not going to let them. Over the next few days, the Copernicus's sensors gathered more data about the signal and the Void itself. Dr. Marcus Zhang, their chief scientist, made a breakthrough late one night that brought Reyes running to the lab. Look at this, he said, pointing to a complex series of equations. The Void isn't just empty space. It's an artificial construct, Commander. Someone or something is actively maintaining it. Reyes studied the data. Can you determine its purpose? Not yet, but I can tell you one thing. It's massive, far beyond anything we've ever encountered. And based on these energy readings, it's drawing power from somewhere. The signal we detected might be some kind of maintenance protocol or warning system. Before Reyes could respond, the ship's emergency alarms blared. Commander, to the bridge. Lieutenant Chen's voice was urgent. On the bridge, Chen pointed to a distress signal on their long-range sensors. Passenger liner, caught in some kind of gravitational distortion at the Void's edge. They're being pulled in. Reyes didn't hesitate. How many aboard? Over 2,000, mixed species. Plot an intercept course. Alert medical to prepare for casualties. Commander, Chen's voice was careful. The Assembly's orders mean nothing if we let 2,000 people die. Reyes took her command chair. Take us in, maximum thrust, and get me everything we have on those gravitational distortions. We're about to put all our theories to the test." The Copernicus surged forward, its engines straining against the invisible forces that pulled at the passenger liner. As they drew closer, Reyes could see the larger vessel's hull beginning to buckle under the strange stresses. "Dr. Zhang," she called over the comm, "I need options. How do we counter these forces?" "Working on it," came his distracted reply. "The void's effect seems to be focused on specific frequencies of energy. If we can generate an opposing field." "Do it," Reyes ordered. "Divert power from non-essential systems if you have to." The next 10 minutes were a desperate race against time as Zhang and his team reconfigured the Copernicus's shields to emit a counteracting field. The passenger liner's hull groaned audibly over their sensors, but the modified shields began to take effect, creating a stable corridor through which the larger ship could retreat. As the liner limped to safety, Reyes knew their actions would have consequences. They'd directly violated the assembly's quarantine, and there would be diplomatic fallout. But the sensor data they'd gathered during the rescue was invaluable, giving them their first real insight into how the void operated. Hours later, as she recorded her official log, Reyes chose her words carefully. "Today's events have made one thing clear. The void is not a natural phenomenon to be avoided, but a challenge that must be confronted. If the assembly won't act, then humanity will stand as the guardians of this sector. We've already begun design work on a specialized vessel, incorporating what we've learned about the void's properties. The Copernicus's mission here may be over, but humanity's commitment to understanding and containing this threat is just beginning." She paused, considering the implications of what they'd discovered and what lay ahead. "Someone built this thing, this massive construct that we call the void. They had a purpose, a reason. And until we understand what that reason was, every ship that passes through this sector is at risk. The assembly can issue all the quarantine orders they want, but they can't stop ships from needing to cross this region of space. Someone has to stand guard here. Someone has to solve this mystery. And if it has to be us," she added, a hint of determination entering her voice, "then so be it." The massive construction bay at Jupiter's orbital shipyard hummed with activity as Commander Elena Reyes walked alongside Dr. Zhang, reviewing the progress on humanity's most ambitious spacecraft to date. The Sentinel took shape before them, its dark hull incorporating layers of experimental quantum resonance materials designed specifically to resist the void's strange properties. 3 more ships disappeared last week, Reyes said, studying the holographic readouts floating beside them. "The assembly's blockade isn't working." Zhang nodded grimly. "They can't patrol every approach to the void. As long as it remains the fastest route between the Orion and Carina arms, ships will try to cross it." The Sentinel's unique design reflected everything they'd learned from the Copernicus's encounter with the void. Its hull incorporated crystalline lattices grown in zero gravity, capable of adapting to gravitational distortions. The quantum field generators that Dr. Zhang had developed could create stable corridors through the void's disrupted space, similar to what they'd improvised during the passenger liner rescue, but far more powerful. A commotion at the bay's entrance drew their attention. Lieutenant Chen hurried toward them, her expression tense. "Commander, we have a situation. The Meridian Collective's surveillance ships are approaching Jupiter's orbit. They're demanding to inspect our shipyards." Reyes straightened. "On what grounds?" "They claim we're developing restricted technologies. Ambassador Zextra is leading the delegation personally." "Interesting." Reyes shared a look with Zhang. The crystalline ambassador's presence suggested this wasn't a simple intimidation attempt. "Have them dock at Bay 4. I'll meet them there." The Meridian delegation's arrival was a study in calculated effect. Ambassador Zextra's crystalline form caught and refracted the bay's lights, creating an aurora of colors that demanded attention. Their escort of 4 diplomatic guards moved with precise, synchronized motions. "Commander Reyes," Zextra's voice resonated with harmonics that human vocal cords couldn't produce. Your activities here have caused quite a stir in the assembly. We're building a ship, Ambassador. Last I checked, that wasn't against any galactic laws. A ship incorporating restricted quantum field manipulation technology, if our intelligence is correct. Zextra's crystalline surface shifted patterns, technology that bears remarkable similarity to theoretical work done by Meridian scientists. Reyes met the ambassador's multifaceted gaze steadily. Our quantum field generators were developed independently by Dr. Zhang and his team. We've already submitted all required patents and technical documentation to the Assembly Science Council. Yet you plan to use this technology to violate the void quarantine. We plan to use it to save lives. Reyes gestured to a nearby display showing the latest statistics. 12,000 beings lost in the past year alone. How many more need to vanish before the Assembly takes real action? Zextra studied the numbers, their crystalline form refracting light in thoughtful patterns. You truly believe you can succeed where others have failed. We believe we have to try. Reyes paused, considering her next words carefully. The Meridians understand better than most the importance of gathering data, of seeking knowledge. You've seen our readings from the void. You know this isn't just some natural hazard we can wall off and forget about. The ambassador was silent for a long moment. When they spoke again, their tone had shifted subtly. Show me your ship, Commander. The tour of the Sentinel revealed more than just humanity's technological achievements. Reyes made sure Zextra saw the medical bay, designed to treat victims of void exposure from any known species. They visited the diplomatic section, built to host representatives from any civilization whose ships might need assistance in the sector. You're not just building a patrol vessel, Zextra observed as they reached the bridge. You're creating a mobile sanctuary. The void affects everyone who travels through this sector of space, Reyes replied. Our response should reflect that reality. Before Zextra could respond, alarms blared throughout the shipyard. Lieutenant Chen's voice came over the comm. Commander, priority alert from the void sector. A Meridian science vessel is reporting critical system failures on the quarantine zone's edge. Reyes turned to Zextra, whose crystalline surface had clouded with concern. One of yours. The Stellar Seeker. They were supposed to be collecting data from a safe distance. Zextra's harmonics conveyed clear distress. The Sentinel systems are at 90% completion, Reyes said, already moving toward the bridge's central console. We can launch within the hour. The Assembly has not approved. Ambassador, Reyes interrupted, we can debate politics after we save your people. The next few hours were a blur of activity as the Sentinel was prepared for emergency launch. Construction crews worked frantically to secure critical systems, while Dr. Zhang's team rushed to bring the quantum field generators online. Ambassador Zextra, after a brief communication with their government, chose to remain aboard. As they approached the void's boundary, Reyes stood at the Sentinel's command station, watching the massive anomaly fill their view. The Stellar Seeker's distress beacon pulsed weakly ahead of them, its signal distorted by the same forces that were tearing the ship apart. Quantum field generators online, John reported from his station. Shield harmonics adapting to local space distortions. Take us in, Reyes ordered. Full power to the stabilization systems. The Sentinel crossed into the void's influence, and for a moment, everything seemed to twist sideways. Then the quantum fields engage, creating a bubble of stable space around the ship. They could see the Stellar Seeker now, its crystalline hull fractured by competing gravitational forces. Their core containment is failing, Chen reported. 5 minutes until catastrophic breach. Reyes looked at Zextra. Your ship's hull properties. They're similar to your own crystalline structure, correct? The ambassador nodded. A resonant lattice design. But the void's forces are creating destructive interference patterns. Dr. Zhang, can we modify our quantum field to match their hull frequency? Use their own crystalline properties to stabilize them. Zhang's fingers flew over his console. Theoretically, yes. But we'd need precise measurements of their hull's resonant frequency, which I can provide. Zextra said, stepping forward. Their surface began to pulse with patterns of light, transmitting data directly to Zhang's station. The rescue that followed proved the Sentinel's worth beyond any diplomatic argument. The ship's quantum fields, tuned to the exact frequency of the Meridian vessel's hull, created a protective bubble that allowed the stellar seeker to restore power and limp to safety. Hours later, as both ships docked at Jupiter Station, Ambassador Zextra approached Reyes on the Sentinel's bridge. "You took an incredible risk, launching an untested ship." "Sometimes the biggest risk is doing nothing," Reyes replied. "Indeed." Zextra's surface rippled with complex patterns. "I will inform the Assembly that the Meridian Collective withdraws its objection to your Void Patrol operation. Furthermore, we would like to discuss sharing some of our crystalline technology research. It seems our two species' approaches to quantum field manipulation might be complementary." Reyes smiled. "I imagine that will make certain Assembly members rather uncomfortable." "Good." Zextra's harmonics carried an unmistakable note of satisfaction. "Perhaps discomfort will motivate them to take a more active role in solving this crisis, rather than simply trying to quarantine it." As the ambassador departed, Reyes turned back to the viewport, watching distant ships move through Jupiter's space lanes. The Sentinel had proven itself today, but she knew this was just the beginning. The Void's mysteries remained unsolved, its dangers undiminished. But for the first time since discovering the ancient signal, she felt certain they were on the right path. "Lieutenant Chen," she called, "begin crew selection protocols. The Sentinel starts full patrol duties in 1 week." "Yes, Commander." Chen paused. "The Assembly won't make this easy for us." "They never do," Reyes replied. "But they're not our primary concern. Something built the Void. Something sent that signal. And sooner or later, we're going to find out why." The Sentinel drifted silently through the Void's twisted space, its quantum fields humming as they held the distortions at bay. Commander Reyes studied the holographic display, showing their latest sensor readings, her expression growing more troubled with each new data point. "The pattern's unmistakable now," Dr. Zhang said, highlighting a series of energy signatures. "These aren't random anomalies. The Void is actively scanning every ship that enters its space." 3 months of patrol duty had transformed their understanding of the mysterious sector. The Sentinel had rescued 14 vessels, gathered terabytes of sensor data, and mapped previously unknown energy patterns throughout the region. But each answer only led to more questions. Lieutenant Chen's voice cut through Reyes's thoughts. "Commander, we're picking up another signal, different from the others. It's responding to our presence." The bridge crew watched as new data streamed across their screens. The signal pulsed in complex patterns, unlike anything they'd encountered before. Zhang's eyes widened as he analyzed the incoming information. "This is a handshake protocol," he breathed. "The Void's defense systems are trying to communicate with us." "Can we respond?" Reyes asked. "The quantum field generators, they're not just protecting us from the Void's effects. Their frequency matches something in the original architecture. The system recognizes them." Before Zhang could say more, the space around the Sentinel shifted. A massive structure materialized before them, its surface covered in geometric patterns that seemed to fold in on themselves impossibly. The ship's eye highlighted points of comparison between the structure's design and the quantum field technology they'd developed. "We didn't just recreate their technology," Reyes realized. "We rediscovered it." The structure's surface rippled, and a beam of coherent energy connected with the Sentinel's quantum field. Data began flooding their systems, not an attack, but an archive. The translation matrix struggled to process the ancient language, but fragments began to emerge. "It's some kind of historical record," Zhang reported, his fingers dancing over the controls. "The Void. It wasn't created as a weapon. It was meant to be a shield." The story unfolded in fragments of text and technical data. Millions of years ago, a civilization called the Precursors had detected something approaching their galaxy, something that traveled between the stars using methods that violated what they understood of physics. The void was created as a quarantine zone, designed to prevent whatever they detected from gaining access to populated space. The disappearing ships, Chen said quietly. The defense system is still active. It's been destroying anything it perceives as using similar technology to whatever the precursors were trying to stop. But our quantum fields are different, Zhang added. They operate on principles the system recognizes as safe. That's why. The ship shuddered as proximity alarms blared. 3 vessels had dropped out of faster-than-light travel nearby. Warships bearing the insignia of the Kalar Imperium, one of the most aggressive species in known space. Multiple weapons locks, Chen reported tensely. They're charging main guns. A harsh voice cut through their communications. Human vessel, you have accessed restricted archaeological data. Prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. Reyes's mind raced. The Kalar must have been monitoring their activities, waiting for them to make a breakthrough. How long until we can process the complete data archive? Hours at least, John replied. Maybe days to fully understand it. Time we don't have. Reyes opened a channel to the Kalar ships. This is Commander Reyes of the Sentinel. The data we've discovered concerns all spacefaring species. Stand down, and we can discuss sharing. The first shot cut through space where they had been moments before, the Sentinel's predictive systems having moved them to safety just in time. The quantum fields flared as they absorbed the weapon's energy. They're not interested in discussing anything, Chen observed grimly. No, Reyes agreed. They want to control the void's secrets for themselves. She keyed the ship-wide comm. All hands, battle stations. Dr. Zhang, keep working on that archive. Lieutenant Chen, show our friends why trying to board this ship would be a very poor decision. The battle that followed demonstrated why the Sentinel was more than just a rescue vessel. Its quantum fields could deflect energy weapons, while its understanding of the void's properties allowed it to use the sector's natural distortions to its advantage. The Keller ships found themselves fighting an opponent that seemed to bend space itself. But the real surprise came when the void's defense systems reacted to the weapons fire. Ancient satellites, dormant for millions of years, began powering up throughout the sector. The Keller ships suddenly found their faster-than-light drives disabled, trapped in normal space. The defense grid, Zhang called out, reading the new data streaming in. It's not just blocking faster-than-light travel, it can selectively disable any technology it considers a threat. The precursors built a complete control system for this entire sector. Can you access those controls? Working on it. The system seems to be responding to our quantum field signature as an authentication key. The Keller commander's voice came through again, this time with less certainty. What are you doing to our ships? Nothing, Reyes replied calmly. But the Void's original architects seem to have opinions about firing weapons in their territory. A new signal caught their attention. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the sector's edge. The Meridian Collective's insignia appeared on their screens, along with vessels from 3 other major species. Ambassador Zextra's harmonic voice filled their command center. Commander Reyes, the Assembly Council has voted to intervene. It seems we arrived just in time to witness history being made. The Kalar ships, faced with overwhelming odds and malfunctioning systems, powered down their weapons, but Reyes barely noticed their surrender. Her attention was fixed on the new data still pouring in from the ancient archive. Dr. Zhang, she said quietly, what else can you tell me about these precursors? About what they were trying to stop? The scientist's voice was equally soft as he replied. Commander, according to these readings, whatever they detected, it's still out there. And it's getting closer. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The void wasn't just a dangerous sector of space or an archaeological curiosity. It was a warning system, built by a long-dead race to protect the galaxy from something they feared enough to quarantine an entire sector of space. Send word to Earth, Reyes ordered. And get me a secure channel to the Assembly Council. They need to understand what we're dealing with here." As the Sentinel's crew worked to unravel the ancient data, Ray stared out at the shimming barrier that marked the edge of normal space. They had solved one mystery only to uncover something far larger and more threatening. The real question now wasn't what the void was, but whether its ancient defenses would be enough to stop whatever was coming. "The precursors built all this to protect us," she murmured. "Now it's our job to finish what they started." The Assembly's emergency session chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from 37 spacefaring species debated humanity's discoveries. Commander Reyes stood at the center of the vast amphitheater. The Sentinel's sensor logs and translated precursor data displayed on massive holographic screens around her. "The evidence is undeniable," she concluded, gesturing to the energy pattern analyses. "Something is approaching our galaxy, using methods of faster-than-light travel that even the precursors couldn't comprehend. The void isn't just a defensive system. It's an early warning network." The chamber erupted in overlapping arguments. The Kalar delegation, still smarting from their failed attempt to seize the void's secrets, called for immediate militarization of the sector. The Meridian Collective advocated for a scientific approach, while others demanded the entire region be sealed off completely. Ambassador Zextra's crystalline form refracted light in patterns of concern as they addressed the Assembly. "The human quantum field technology has proven capable of interfacing with precursor systems. We cannot ignore this compatibility. Precisely why this technology must be shared among all species," the Kalar High Commander growled. "No single race can be trusted with such power." "The technology isn't the issue," Rise interrupted. "What matters is the void's warning. Something is coming, and we need to be ready." Before anyone could respond, Lieutenant Chen burst into the chamber, her face pale. "Commander, multiple unauthorized vessels have entered the void sector. They're attempting to access the control systems." The holographic displays shifted to show real-time footage from the void. Ships bearing markings of various species, including several unregistered vessels, were converging on the recently discovered precursor installations. "Pirates and corporate mercenaries," someone muttered, "trying to steal the technology while we debate." Reyes was already moving. "The Sentinel can be ready to launch in 20 minutes. "You'll need help," Ambassador Zextra said, their crystalline surface pulsing with determination. "The Meridian Fleet stands ready, as does the Kalar Imperium," the High Commander added, surprising everyone. "Whatever comes through that barrier will face unified resistance." The next few hours transformed the void sector into a battlefield, but not the kind anyone had expected. The Sentinel led a mixed fleet of ships from various species, all working to prevent the raiders from accessing the precursor technology. Their advantage lay not in firepower, but in understanding how to navigate the void's distorted space. Multiple ships attempting to breach the central installation, Chen reported from her station on the Sentinel's bridge. Their weapons fire is causing unexpected reactions in the void structure. Rise watched as spatial distortions rippled out from the points of impact. The raiders don't understand what they're dealing with. Those installations aren't just technology to be stolen. They're part of a unified defense system. Damage one part, and the whole network could collapse. Dr. Zhang finished. "Commander, I'm detecting massive power fluctuations throughout the sector. The void's containment fields are becoming unstable." A new alarm sounded, and Chen's voice took on an edge of fear. Energy spike detected at the outer boundary. Something's trying to break through. The view screens showed a point of absolute darkness forming at the edge of the void, where space itself seemed to tear open. The precursor warning system screamed to life, recognizing a familiar threat. "All ships, fall back to safe distance," Rise ordered across all channels. "Dr. Zhang, can we use the quantum fields to stabilize the barrier?" "The Sentinel's fields alone aren't powerful enough," he replied. "But if we could synchronize with other ships using similar technology." Rise opened a channel to their allies. "This is Commander Rise to all vessels equipped with quantum field generators. We need to create a synchronized containment grid. Ambassadors Extra, can your ships modify their crystalline matrices to amplify the effect? Already beginning the modifications, the ambassador confirmed. But we'll need more power. The Kaler fleet will provide it. The High Commander's voice rumbled across the comm. Our fusion cores are yours to command. As the raider ships fled the growing disturbance, the Allied fleet moved into position. The Sentinel's quantum fields linked with the Meridian ships' crystalline matrices, while the Kaler vessels channeled their enormous power reserves into the growing network. Together, they created a web of stabilizing energy that pushed back against the spatial tear. The breach is closing, John reported, his voice tense with concentration. But I'm detecting something on the other side. For a brief moment, their sensors penetrated the darkness beyond the void. What they recorded would haunt them all for years to come. Shapes that defied Euclidean geometry, moving in ways that shouldn't be possible, approaching their galaxy with inexorable purpose. The breach sealed itself as their combined energy fields reinforced the precursor barriers, but the damage was done. Everyone had seen what lay beyond, had glimpsed the threat that the precursors had sacrificed everything to contain. Hours later, as the Allied fleet maintained their protective formation around the Void's key installations, the Assembly Council reconvened via holographic link. The debate had been replaced by a grim sense of purpose. We face a choice, Rise addressed the gathered representatives. We can continue fighting among ourselves over the precursor technology, or we can work together to prepare for what's coming. The Void was built as a shield for all intelligent life in this galaxy. Its defense cannot belong to any one species. Ambassador Zextra's form sparkled with agreement. The Meridian Collective proposes the creation of a joint defense force centered around the Void sector, all species contributing technology, resources, and personnel. The Kaler Imperium seconds this proposal. The High Commander declared, "Our strength has always been in warfare. Let us put it to use protecting our galaxy." One by one, other species added their support. Within hours, the Assembly had drafted the framework for unified defense, establishing the first truly cooperative military force in galactic history. As the Sentinel maintained its vigil at the heart of the Void, Rise watched the combined fleet taking up defensive positions throughout the sector. Lieutenant Chen approached with a data tablet. "First reports from the joint science teams," she said. "They believe we can modify the precursor barrier technology, strengthen it against future breaches. But it will take time." "Time we may not have," Rise replied, studying the sensor logs from the breach. "But we'll make the most of what we've got." Humanity stood alone to guard the Void when no one else would. Now we stand together against whatever lies beyond it. She turned to her crew, seeing the same determination reflected in their eyes. They had solved the mystery of the Void, but their greatest challenge still lay ahead. The galaxy's species had united, not through conquest or commerce, but through the recognition of a common threat and the need to face it together. "Send word to the construction yards," she ordered. "We're going to need more ships." 6 months after the breach incident, the Void sector had transformed. Where once ships vanished without trace, now a vast defensive network stretched across the region. The Sentinel, newly upgraded with combined technology from a dozen species, patrolled at the heart of an international fleet. Commander Reyes stood in the newly constructed Void Command Center, a massive space station built using precursor design principles. The quantum field generators that had once been unique to the Sentinel now powered installations throughout the sector, their technology refined through collaboration between human and alien engineers. "The latest sensor data from the outer barrier," Dr. Zhang reported, bringing up a holographic display. "The reinforcements are holding. No signs of new breach attempts." Ambassador Zextra's crystalline form shifted colors thoughtfully, but the entity continues to probe. Each test reveals more about its nature and its intentions. The data painted a disturbing picture. Whatever lurked beyond the Void wasn't simply alien. It represented a form of existence that operated under different physical laws. The precursors had recognized it as an existential threat to all life in their galaxy, and now their successors face the same challenge. "Commander," Lieutenant Chen called from her station, "the first graduating class from the Joint Defense Academy is ready for inspection." Reyes smiled. The academy had been her idea, a place where crews from all species could train together, learning to combine their unique abilities and technologies. The first class of graduates would soon take command of ships throughout the defensive fleet. The graduation ceremony highlighted how much had changed. Humans stood alongside Meridians, Kalers, and dozens of other species. Their uniforms bore the emblem of the United Defense Force, a symbol showing the Void's barrier protecting a spiral galaxy. When humanity first discovered the Void signal, Reyes addressed the assembled graduates. "We stood alone. Many thought we were fools to investigate what others feared. But today we stand together, not because of that fear, but because we chose to face it united." After the ceremony, an urgent message arrived from the long-range sensor arrays. Dr. Zhang's team had been working with Meridian scientists to extend the Void's detection capabilities, trying to learn more about what awaited them. "We've managed to map its approach vector," Zhang explained, showing a three-dimensional plot of space-time distortions. "It's not just one entity. It's an entire civilization, if we can call it that. They're systematically exploring galaxies, looking for ways to convert them." "Convert them to what?" the Kaler High Commander demanded. "To match their own physics," Zhang replied grimly. "They're not just invaders. They're trying to change the fundamental nature of our reality to match their own." The revelation sparked a new wave of cooperation. The Kaler Imperium opened their restricted weapons research facilities. The Meridian Collective shared centuries of theoretical physics studies. Other species contributed their own unique insights and technologies. Humanity's quantum field generators evolved into something far more sophisticated through this exchange of knowledge. But the greatest breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young Meridian scientist, working with human researchers, discovered that the precursor barrier technology could be modified to do more than just block the invaders. It could potentially push back, creating regions of space that were permanently hostile to their form of existence. The testing phase was dangerous. Several ships were lost to spatial distortions before they perfected the technique. But gradually, a new strategy emerged. Instead of simply defending, they could actively create safe zones, expanding them until the invaders were forced to retreat. "It's not a perfect solution," Reyes admitted during a strategy session, "but it gives us a fighting chance. More importantly, it gives us time to develop better defenses." The assembly, once paralyzed by internal politics, had found new purpose. Resources poured into the Void sector from across the galaxy. New ships were built, incorporating technology from multiple species. Research stations studied the precursor archives, looking for additional weapons against the coming threat. 1 year after the breach incident, Reyes stood on the Sentinel's bridge, watching a test of the new barrier technology. Energy fields rippled across space, creating a cascading wave of altered physics that would be lethal to the extra-dimensional invaders. "Test successful," Chen reported. "The field maintained stability at full power. The precursors would be proud," Ambassador Zextray observed. "Their defense system has evolved beyond what they imagined, protecting life in ways they never dreamed possible." "Because we work together," Reyes replied. "No single species could have achieved this alone." An alert sounded, another probe at the barrier's edge. But this time, they were ready. The combined fleet moved into position, their quantum fields synchronizing. The Sentinel led the formation, its advanced sensors mapping the distortion. Multiple breach attempts detected, Chen called out. "They're trying to find a weak point." "They won't find one," Reyes said firmly. "All ships, execute Operation Lightbringer." The fleet's quantum fields activated in sequence, creating a wave of altered spacetime that surged outward from the Void. For the first time, they were pushing back against the invaders, forcing them to retreat from the altered regions of space. As the energy readings from beyond the barrier diminished, indicating the enemy's withdrawal, Rice felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The void was no longer just a mysterious danger zone. It had become the foundation of galactic unity, a shield protecting all life in their galaxy. "Send word to Void Command," she ordered. "Operation successful. Begin planning for Phase 2. The Sentinel's crew cheered, along with their counterparts throughout the fleet. But Reyes knew this was just the beginning. The extra-dimensional threat would return, probably with new tactics. The galaxy would need to remain united, continue innovating, and always stay vigilant. "Lieutenant Chen," she called, "set course for the outer marker. We've pushed them back from this sector, but there's a lot more space to defend." As the Sentinel moved into position, Rise reflected on how far they'd come. Humanity had started this journey alone, driven by curiosity and determination. Now they led a united galaxy, facing a threat that would have been impossible to confront alone. The Void, once a place of fear and mystery, had become a symbol of hope, proof that different species could work together, combine their knowledge and strengths, and overcome even the most alien of threats. "Ready for quantum jump," Chen reported. "Take us out," Rise commanded. "The Void is secure. Time to show the rest of the galaxy how to defend itself." The Sentinel leaped into quantum space, leading a mixed fleet of ships toward their next challenge. Behind them, the Void's barrier stood strong, no longer just an ancient defense system, but a monument to what united species could achieve together. The galaxy's greatest test still lay ahead, but they would face it as one. Human ingenuity, meridian insight, Kalar strength, and the unique contributions of countless other species had forged something unprecedented, a civilization ready to defend itself against threats from beyond the boundaries of known space. The war for reality itself had begun, and they intended to win it, together.